And actually, our adults are like little children. And say it is not so. If today a childish and immature duty to life has become normative, a perfect person is not an adult and expressive person, but someone who is young. It is he who is young that is focus of the modern world, which says it is good and right to be young. But it's all up to a certain point, until young people start talking about serious things. In such situations, adults are immediately alarmed and at best simply try not to hear us or pay attention what is being said. This is how we saw our proposal to the United Nations leadership to declare 2025 the year of reform of this organization. In December last year, we even sent official apparel to the United Nations Secretary General on this matter.
Мене звати Злата Матвєєва. Мені 11 років.
My name is Zlata Matvieva. I am 11 years old.
Отак виглядають багато шкіл нашого міста Харкова.
This is what many schools in our city of Kharkiv look like.
Але ми продовжуємо навчатися, звісно ж, онлайн.
But we continue to study, of course, online.
Тому я спеціально для нашого звернення вивчила, що таке ООН.
That's why I studied what the UN is specifically for our appeal.
З цієї причини я беру на себе сміливість нагадати громадянам усіх країн світу і насамперед керівництвом та членам ООН, навіщо була створена Організація Об'єднаних Націй.
For this reason, I take the liberty of reminding the citizens of all countries of the world, and especially the UN leadership, why the United Nations was created.
And the result, as we expected, is always no result. Probably because it is profitable or convenient.
You'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards.
And actually, our adults are like little children. And the worst thing is that they are not some ideal children from some ideal world, but ordinary children with their natural caprice and frivolity, with their ability to turn everything into a game and not to take everything seriously.
Владимир Путин одобрил позицию президента США Дональда Трампа о прекращении
That's how we started recording this film on June 4th last year, the day of remembrance for the dead children in Ukraine. And then there was the summer that my mother and I spent in a monastery in the Ternopil region, because it was dangerous to stay in Kharkiv. No, we are not nuns. Actually, I am a model, and an international one at that, and I have even won international competitions. We just believe in God, and if things get really hard, we immediately hide under His protection. That summer was very hot because Kharkiv was regularly shelled by Russian missiles. It scared us a lot, which is why we went first to the monastery and then to Germany. And this is because autumn was approaching and it was impossible to predict how it would all end in the winter. That's why we decided to go to Germany with our friends, where we currently live, and where we finished recording this film, not just an appeal to the UN leadership. And this is because last year no one paid attention to our appeal. Or, to be more precise, no one was even going to pay attention, which we didn't even realize at first because we were naive. And the reason is simple. As a rule, many adults who are respected and influential live in a world of their own. A terrible world in which we simple children with our problems are just a topic of discussion or even a screensaver for TV news. And it's often a topic for their own PR. And that's the best case, because there's a terrible case. It's when we turn into statistics.
Since the beginning of the full-scale war in Ukraine, 1993 children have died. This means that an average of 2 children die in Ukraine every day. These are only the figures confirmed by the UN. The real number of victims is much higher and, according to unofficial data, reaches 10,000.
And to be honest, in the beginning I had no desire to make this record, even in the case that it would be a movie. First of all, we didn't have the conditions for it. We didn't even have a professional camera, or even a loop with a microphone. And secondly, or maybe even firstly, what was the point of it? Why and who needs it? We had neither the technical nor the financial capabilities to make a professional film, because all this time we have been working at our own expense and no one helped us. And hoping that we could somehow influence the situation in this way was not only futile, but also ridiculous, as we have seen over the course of a year of work. Nevertheless, in the end I agreed. I agreed after hearing on the news that the war in Ukraine is a crisis. Do you know what this word means? In Greek, it means judgment. In the global sense, it is the judgment of God. And if it is a judgment, it means God's verdict and, of course, punishment, which explains the troubles in people's lives as a result of such crises. In doing so, I remembered a very interesting conversation with a priest in a monastery who once asked me what I was doing. I had to tell him about our project, which I ended with the conclusion: we are engaged in nonsense because no one will hear our conclusions and no one is interested in these conclusions. The priest listened to me carefully and then answered, "No, child, it is not so. You're doing a very important thing because you're telling the truth. And the fact that people refuse to listen to you is not terrible and should be expected. People in general, and especially the influential, powerful, and rich, always ignore the truth and refuse to hear it, which is why our Lord died a terrible death. But this does not mean that this truth should not be told." And then the priest explained what the word crisis means and said that our case is a part of this trial. And this is because there is always a certain reaction to our initiative, appeals or films.
Even if someone does not react to all this or says that it is all nonsense or not interesting, this is also a reaction, and it is a reaction that is taken into account by God, because in this way the Lord reveals the hidden essence of each person, which is usually hidden by hypocrisy and lies. These people are not interested in hearing and watching about the suffering and death of children, because it interferes with their entertainment. So much for the face, a cruel and soulless face that hides in ordinary life behind a mask of piety and humanity. These people generally consider themselves to be the rulers of the fate of all mankind, which of course hides behind political statements. And here you are with your truth, which they will of course ignore, because this truth exposes their true criminal nature. But God sees all of this, and this will be one of the proofs of this criminal nature at his divine judgment.
So calm down and do your job, because this is very important. The priest summarized our conversation. Then I remembered this conversation and agreed to take part in an additional recording of this movie.
And whoever shall seduce one of these little ones who believe in me, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the depth of the sea.
А хто спокусить одного з малих цих, що вірять у мене, тому краще було б, якби повісили йому млиновий жорно на шию і потопили його в глибині морській.
A movie that makes cry.
Уявляєте, дві 15-річні дівчини готуються до смерті, прощаючись один з одною.
Imagine this. Two 15-year-old girls are saying goodbye to each other as they prepare to die.
A movie that results in horror.
Чуєте? Це кричать у предсмертній агонії від страшного болю троє маленьких дітей.
3 children are screaming in dying agony from terrible pain.
Троє маленьких дітей, які палають.
3 small children on fire.
A movie that encourages you to think about life.
На це людство по великому рахунку чомусь особливої уваги не звертає. Незважаючи на те, що у даному випадку синоніми слова «втрати» є страшні слова – загибель та смерть.
For some reason, for the most part, humanity does not pay much attention to this, despite the fact that in this case the word loss is synonymous with the terrible words death and destruction. Not child's games. A movie of warning. A movie that can turn this world upside down.
Dear international community,
Шановні друзі та громадяни різних країн світу.
Dear friends, citizens of different countries of the world.
Ми не хочемо, щоб жахливий запах смерті, який все більше піднімається в Україну, перемістився у ваші будинки та квартири.
We do not want the terrible smell of death that is increasingly rising over Ukraine to move into your homes and apartments.
Watch starting from June 4th on the World Without War channel and on the channels of the information partners of the international initiative, Starting to Build a World Without War.